This is a run through of using Global TIS on this laptop with the VCX Diag and Opcom interface. Just going to start off by actually powering on the machine. You can see firstly that the cable's plugged in there. There's a little silver and gold dot in the top USB port. You plug the cable in there. That's for the VCX Nano or for the Opcom cable, which has got a gold dot on it. Just to show you that there. Right there. Only one cable can be used at a time, so you either have to plug in the VCX Diag or the Opcom. To start a laptop, it's obviously plugged into power at the moment, but it can be used on battery. Press the power button there. It will power up and it will bring you to a loading menu. The one which is default to boot, which always boots after 30 seconds, is the Vauxhall Global TIS one there, and the other one there is for online access with Service Box PSA. So we'll just speed that up by pressing the enter key, and that will start the loading process of loading it up into Windows. Global TIS is a very archaic software, so it does need to run in something quite old, which is basically Windows XP. There has been some attempts to port it over to Windows 10, but unfortunately there's an issue with the database which keeps going corrupt after a few boots, so there is a requirement to use it under XP for stability and for functionality reasons. So once it boots up, give it about 30 seconds to a minute to finish loading, because it's going to carry on loading its database in the background. If you just see down there, there's a flashing hard drive light indicating that it's still booting. It's still booting up. While we're doing that, because it's still doing that, we can check the VCX Manager, which is the VCX Manager interface. This is equivalent to, basically it's equivalent to the GM-MDI. Now, a little bit of a word about the VCX Nano. It's an emulator. It emulates the MDI in software, and the actual control interface just down there, the actual unit itself, is basically a multiplexer. So it does the multiplex side of it, but the software side is driven directly from the All-Scanner software. So what happens is basically All-Scanner basically issue licenses to each device. So in here there's a serial number, and that serial number gets validated and approved for license. Now the license runs all the way up to 2030, then it gets renewed again for another 10 years. So there's no issues in regards of renewal. It does run on XP a slightly earlier version of the software, which is good actually, because the new software requires a license update every 30 days, where this doesn't require any license updates for the longevity of the device basically. So what we can do while we're running this up is just to run the self-test option, and that's automatically come back checking the bus protocols, and it basically means that's all good. You don't have to run this, it's just purely for explanation of what these things do. Don't worry about updating the firmware, because it only works with this version 1.3 and 1.6. If we press hardware test, that just gives a little beep to indicate where the actual device is. Obviously it's at the end of the cable, but in some cases some of the models can be used wirelessly. If we just check in the licenses, we can see there that we have licenses up to the end of 2030, and it's pass through PDU, GDS2 and Tech2 Win. So if we close out the All-Scanner box, and if we load up Tech2 Win now, which is probably what a lot of people use it for, and also GDS2, just press the Quick Start button. This is the Quick Start ROM, which has already been loaded, and it will ask you to connect to an interface, and that interface you want to connect to is the GM-MDI, the top one on the list. Press OK on that, and at that point now you can see it's issued a serial number. That's the serial number of the device it's emulating and the USB port. Now if this is blanked out, if this is not actually available, go back and check VCX Manager and make sure the device is connected. If it's not showing up in VCX Manager, go back to the cabling there on the port and make sure it's fully seated. and also make sure it's fully seated at the end of the connector, at the actual VCX diag device. The connectors on these can be quite fragile, so be incredibly careful when connecting and disconnecting the cable from either the device end here or from here. It's always worth pulling out the cable from the connector, and when you store the actual VX diag device, don't loop the cable around the actual device itself, because it puts too much mechanical stress on the cable. It's best just to loop it around loosely with the actual device. You can leave it connected, plugged into the actual VX diag, but just loop it gently and then put it away somewhere. Otherwise these cables can break, and they break at the stems there, and they basically need a new cable ordered. They're basically mobile phone micro USB cables with the data cable pins running, so 4 wires connected. But it's best not to try to break this. It's unlikely you're going to break it over time, but over a year or two of mechanical stress, if it's being pulled out by the cable, it will potentially break that cable down. So going back to here, you should see, as we can see here, we should see the serial number listed, which we do, which means it's actually communicating. Press OK. Now down on Global TIS, it's already been given its security license for 1 day. When this needs renewing, we'll go through that process of the security access to the to re-enable the actual the Tech2 Win. So we'll do that in a moment. We're just going to run a basic check first. So going to press enter here and go into diagnostics. Then select the year. This is already connected to an ECU down there. It's connected to an EDC16 Vectress C from 2008, which we'll use as our test to test out the Tech2 Win and GDS2 and the programming afterwards. So we'll press wrong year, 2008 Vectress C, and we'll select on here the vehicle option. Now, this will do a module and ECU presence check. Now obviously we've only got an ECU connected in, no modules, so we're not going to find much by running this, but we'll run it anyway and we'll see what basically comes back. It will probably be nothing but other than the ECU. We'll press it and it will say to put the ignition on, turn the make sure the engine's off. Obviously in this case, this test case, it's already hardwired to the ignition on. And it will start communicating, and the light on the VCX dial will start to flash the blue icon, blue LED. And it will start to identify the modules on the car. There we go. So it's saying, have we got this equipment on the vehicle? We'll click yes on that. And if you can see here, look, it's saying that basically these components are missing. Basically they're missing because there's no modules connected to the CAN bus. So if we press quit on that, and then if we go to DTC information, press OK, confirm on that. And that will start pulling the DTCs from the ECU. There we go, we can see we've got 33 DTCs. They give you a full list of all the DTCs there. That's a little bit easier than actually doing it through the actual drop down list. So you've got view DTCs here as well, and it will go through them one by one. Now a lot of what a lot of people do in Tech2, some of it will require security access from Global TIS. So for example, if we go back, and also you'll require security access to grant the daily license to Tech2 Win. Now Tech2 Win has got a lifetime ability to issue daily licenses from Global TIS, so there's no issues. It's just when you do use this version, this is the non-patched version, one which works with Global TIS, basically this version requires security access on a daily basis. So we go back to the main screen. This will allow you to grant security access to the module, the ECU as well. So sometimes people they go through diagnostics and they go into for example an engine option. Say for example they want to do a mobilizer reprogramming or injector reprogramming. They would want to basically go into this function to grant security access. Now on the old Tech 2 you'd basically, the handheld Tech 2 from the 1980s, which this basically replaced, this is an emulator of a Tech 2 basically, they would have basically gone or connected up their Tech 2. It would have written back access to the memory card inside the Tech 2. You'd have plugged it back into a laptop or a normal desktop machine fully, and then you would have granted access and written the access back and then reconnected it back to the Tech 2, back to the car again, and it would have basically granted access from the VIN number it took in the first place. In this case you don't have to do it that way. You can do it, this is a slightly bit of an easier way of doing it. So if you're going into programming for example and replacing injectors, now usually at this point it would be asking for security access. There you go, it's just popped up. There you go, look. So it's asking for security access to get into that menu. Yeah. So if we press confirm on that and we go back, so you would, once you've actually gone back to the main screen, you have to power off the device, power off the Tech 2 Win, launch it back up again, quick start, select the interface, top one again, and then OK that. And once you get back to the main screen, you want to press start download. Don't worry about that error box, that always pops up, just click OK on that. Next that. And this is the same process you'll do for requesting access to the application if it goes back to 0 days for level 3 access. So that's saying 1 day still valid at the moment. Obviously if you left the laptop alone, went back to it after a day after or a week or something, it will go back to 0, which would load up the application, but it would need the security access to grant you access to the MDI and the VCX Nano interface. Now this request should basically grant level 3 and level 2 access to the vehicle, which basically means that the immobilizer and upper level functions will be granted to the vehicle. If the vehicle's VIN is outside of the scope of Tech 2, if it's beyond the end of 2012 and it can't recognise it, you'll get obviously a message back saying it can't grant access or no request found. Something along them lines will pop up basically. But in this case it's actually handling the request and it's writing it back to the actual Tech 2 and it's writing it into the memory so that it grants it access back to the advanced menus on the car. It's important to shut down Tech 2 and reopen it back up. Something that I've done on many occasions by mistake is not actually close down the application and reopen it back up again. Otherwise it won't have it stored into the memory. And that's it. Now it's granted level 3 and level 2 access, which is absolutely great. So that's basically that. To end using Tech 2, you're going to press the power. That takes it away. Also in Global TIS, if we go back to the main menu, expand this for a second, you've got a few different option boxes here. One being log out. This is for some of it's for news, and this is for the diagnostic client. Not really worried about that too much. More worried about go back to the home, and you've got different levels here. You don't use GDS2 from this interface. This is a very old version. It does not run. All the GDS2 functionality runs in a virtual machine, so don't worry about that. Security access, obviously you know about now. Software download is for downloading ROMs to Tech 2 Win. Don't worry about that. What we'll do is we'll go on to SPS programming because there's a few things you need to know here. So this is for reprogramming body control modules, ECUs, etc, etc. You've got from about 1996, again just OK that little box, it's just a typical error. Okay. When you get software installation menu, click skip. Never install this, you don't need to install this version, you've got a later version on there. Installing this would cause problems, and also it would limit the amount of cars you could connect to. It's not tested with the VCX Nano either, so it might give you communication problems. So leave that one alone, press skip. And in here, you select from the diagnostic tool interface, you select J2534 VX Diag. Then either you've got reprogram ECU or replace and program ECU. So if it was a versionized clean module, which was not already on the car, or it's a new one from a dealership, you'd use that. But in this case, we're just reprogramming the existing ECU. We press this. This will be for updating the calibration data or reprogramming a module which may have become corrupted. Press next on that. And we select Vauxhall as a sales make, 2008, and we select Vectra C from the list. And it finds the VIN, just look at that there, that's the VIN number. Press next, down the bottom. And again, it will basically give us a sales make again. We want to select Vauxhall, next. And then once we're actually in there now, it gives us the options of what's available. Now obviously if you've got more than one controller on there, multiple on the car, you'd have a lot more on this list. But in this case it's quite basic. So we're just going to look at the ECU, because that's anything we've got connected. And the options down there are for programming and normal. In most cases you'll be using them options. Next. Select the actual engine type, which is in this case the Z19, I believe it's a DT. Press again on that again and it will start communicating. Does take a while. And in this case the actual ECU has already been programmed, so it's probably going to come up and say it's already got a calibration on there. So we just select whatever the options are for the actual vehicle, which is fine. Press next again. And it's already said, look, the current calibration is already programmed. So if we look in here, we can see that it's already got the current calibration loaded on there. It's already got calibration loaded and it's showing up as correct. But obviously if you was updating an ECU or you had one without any software on there, you'd have the option to continue at this point. Now, a bit of a word in regards to the reprogramming options. When it does start programming, there's an option to click next and etc. It will do it in chunks across the programming bar. That's perfectly normal. If it hangs for 2-3 minutes at one point at 15 or 25%, don't touch anything, don't panic, just leave it. A lot of people get panicked by the fact is it doesn't continually progress. It does it in chunks and stops for a while. That's typically normal behavior during the programming function. While it's on programming, always make sure the laptop's actually on mains power and not battery power. Otherwise it could lose communication. And make sure you've got a battery maintainer on the car, or the battery's in really good condition. If it's got low voltage, you could potentially drop the voltage during programming, and that could potentially corrupt the ECU and not complete the programming function. That's basically that. So we'll just cancel that because we're not going any further on that. And we'll go out of this. We'll go out of Global Tiers now. Log out of that. And we go out of that. So we've got a few other functions on here as well. One is being GDS2. We'll go through that quickly. This loads up in a virtual machine. It takes a little while to load. It's the latest version of GDS2. I believe that they're actually moving away from this platform going forward because Peugeot are moving it to Diagbox. So I say it's the last version, but probably cars up to 2020 will be mid 2020, I think, are covered in here. Then they started moving them over to Peugeot Diagbox, or sorry, Stellantis Diagbox, I think it's called now. So you've got pretty much a lot of coverage within this software. The other boot option I showed you earlier on is for basically for GME Infotech or Peugeot Service Box. You can still acquire J2534 programming from them on a daily basis. It is quite expensive now, so you can program later cars via the VX Diag. It is authorized J2534 programming interface, so it should still have no problem programming other vehicles, but there has been some recent movements in regards of migrating it to 64-bit in regards to the requirements for their website. I've been told that it does still work at the current time. You just have to press skip, or if it warns about the Java version or the the browser version or the operating system, just press continue and it still works. But at some point in the future it's going to migrate away, probably only to Windows 10 64-bit, so that would require a different laptop if you wanted to use it online going forward from anything after 2020 basically. So once you connect up, this grey screen comes up. You've got this option here, which is GDS2 and the VX Manager. Now we need to connect the interface because it's running in this virtual machine. Basically, it runs a machine in a machine. If we go down to Player, then go Removable Devices, we want to make sure that that one is selected, and it is. If it's automatically connected up at startup, it shouldn't need to be connected like this. But if it's not ticked, you have to press across to there, then press connect to connect it, and you'll hear a few Windows noises like it's being plugged in. And then to disconnect it, you'd press disconnect. In this case, it's ticked and it's showing as enabled, so that's great. It's connected through to the virtual machine. So we run up VCX Manager, the VX Manager, so we can see it's connected. And we can see here it's loading up. It's beeping to indicate that it's communicating. And we should see here, look, the serial numbers all listed, which is great. So we can close this down. Run up the GDS2 icon. Now this doesn't always run on the first occasion. Sometimes you have to run it more than once to get it to run successfully. It is patched to work, so that sometimes requires more than one run to make it run up. If you get any errors like an error type 6, that means you have to close it and restart, retry again. Physically just reopen the application. If you get a little blank box up, just press OK on it, and that usually it loads anyway. So it's usually up to about 2 or 3 attempts sometimes to run it at the worst case scenario. Sometimes it runs absolutely fine. It just depends on the environment and what Windows was doing at the time when it's trying to run the actual application. And it does take a while to load. It's quite a big application. And that little blue bar indicates it's loading. That's perfectly normal. It's saying it can't connect to the website because basically it's not a connected version. It's actually not come back with a release. So let's close it and reopen it up again. There you go. It's got an error code 6. Let's run it one more time. That load of boxes up. That's good. It's loading again. Yeah, that's perfectly good. That's fine. This time it's perfectly good. Look, it's acquired a lease, which is showing up for the next 9 or 10 years, which is great. So we just press diagnostic here. It will start loading into GDS2. And it's acquired the MDI interface there. Now this sometimes will come up in yellow, because it can't always determine the actual VIN number. If the ECU is not officially supported by GDS2, it will show up, but this ECU, for example, is a Tech 2 Win ECU. It was never designed to work with GDS2, but it does work by selecting a vehicle of similar age. So I've loaded it up as a 2009 Insignia there. Obviously it's not, but it has determined that the module is connected in this case. So to continue, you just literally go across to the enter, or press the, you can press the enter down there, the green tick. If it comes up yellow, don't worry about it. If it comes up red, that might be there's a connection problem. Check that the interface is connected through that interface from mobile devices and make sure it's connected there. We just go down to the enter. This supports lots and lots of different cars, all the latest stuff. It's a lot easier to use than Tech2Win, because Tech2Win's on a very small display, because obviously it's a very old very old interface. So in here you can see now we've got module diagnostics, vehicle diagnostics. We click on the vehicle diagnostics one. That will give us the vehicle DTC information. This will do a vehicle wide. This will scan the whole CAN bus. Now obviously we've only got one ECU connected at the moment, but if you're in a vehicle and you want a full run out of what's going on, that would be the best one to click on. Now there might be, oh yeah, you've got a lot of selection boxes here for what's actually equipped on the vehicle. It's quite annoying, but you have to go through them just to select them. If you don't know, just click not equipped. Just continually clicking through them. Not equipped. And there we go. Now it's actually scanning across the actual CAN bus. Obviously it's only found data on one module because we've only got one module connected, but it would start going through and scanning now all the modules on the vehicle on them different CAN bus pins. They're 6 and 14s CAN bus high, I think it is. And these ones are obviously GM specific pins for communication with other modules. It will go through and scan that whole bus, and once it's finished doing it, it will usually generate a report. There you go, just opening up the report now. Press, it asks me later, you don't need to worry about that. And that's basically given a full report. Oh, the right one. That'll given a full report of what's going on in the vehicle, which you can basically take pictures of, or you can plug in a printer and connect it into the virtual machine and print off from the virtual machine. So that gives you access there. Close that. To close out of GDS2, you just go back until you get to the end of back, and then press that one to close it, up top, that one to close it. And then shut down the virtual machine, you've got to go to Windows, shutdown. That's all you've got to do, shutdown. And that will shut down just the virtual machine, not your full Windows system. It's just going to shut down this little part, which is running the GDS2 in an emulator. Now, to connect the Opcom cable, just unplug this for a second and plug in the other cable. So it's plugged in like that, and you can see it's flashing away. Run up the Opcom, another virtual machine running an XP. And you'll see when it's actually finished loading, it'll take a few seconds to load up. and it will load up into this screen here. You can maximize these and put them into full screen if you want. You press that up there, for example. Oh, if it will let me zoom in, maybe. That puts it into full screen mode. And if you want to go out of full screen mode, you can just press that bar again. It's got a little picture there saying enter full screen, exit full screen mode. It's that little picture there. You can see it, that one. And that will take it back into a window again in case, you know, if there's not enough real estate to see all the screen and everything. So once you do, just check the interface is connected, and it's already ticked, so that's great. If we just zoom out there a bit for a second. So future devices is ticked and it's showing disconnect. If it's not ticked, you've got to press connect on there to connect the interface, which is plugged in there. As I said before, you can't have both devices connected at the same time. They both use the same serial chip, and it confuses the hell out of them if you've got them both connected at the same time. You'll lose connection with both interfaces. So that's good. So load it. You've got 3 different versions of Opcom on here, or Voxcom. The top version is the latest version, so we just double click on that. Now obviously I don't have the ECU connected at the moment, but we'll just go through the steps of connecting it. It's already been tested and it works fine. And what you just do is press diagnostic, and you can sometimes get automatic vehicle identification. It doesn't work for all though. I'm just going to select it manually like I would on the Tech 2, and then vector C signum, and then vehicle, choose car identification, and we can see it's automatically trying to open the pin, and it's communicating and basically clicking away. The relays are clicking inside. And that would usually bring up a list of all the actual module data, and it will give you the options to view DTCs. You can find a lot of instructions on YouTube for guides on how to use Opcom. I won't go into it in depth here. It's actually sometimes easier than using the Tech 2. It's a nice addition because it works better with the older vehicles where the VCX the VCX Nano interface is not very good on pre-CAN bus cars. It does work, but it's not as compatible, where the Opcom's got more compatibility before 2004 on most vehicles. The exception of the Corsa C and the Corsa Ds don't work very well on this cloned Opcom cable. There's incompatibility with the firmware on it, so just be aware of that. That's pretty much it on that side of things. Let's cancel that. To shut it down, must go, do this every time, start, shut down. It's very important to shut down the virtual machines, otherwise they can get corrupted. So always make sure when you're finished, start, power off, and then turn off. And that's just shutting down. That's shut down now. The other thing you've got on here as well, on this side, is the Autodata 338. It gives you lots of guides and stuff to run into. Which you can select from there. To close it down, just press the top icon and then press exit. And last but not least, so that's pretty much everything from that side. We'll restart into the other boot option for service box PSA. Just plug in the other VCX Nano again because we don't need that Opcom cable anymore. And then we just select the arrow down there to get to the second menu. So up and down, we go down. So it's highlighted, and then just press enter. It loads up to this picture of a Vauxhall VXR. And again, you've got the same thing as before. Basically, you've got VCX Manager on here to check the actual interface is connected. Which is great, it's all showing up as connected. You've also got on here a cracked version of Tech2 Win, which works with other vehicles. Doesn't require security access to enable this one, so for quick and easy diagnostics without requiring security access, you can run them up from here without requiring the security access to be granted. It always stays at 7 or 32 days, or whatever, which works with North American platforms, and this is the last version of Vauxhall, the 182. It's quite useful sometimes to have that. You've got on here as well, so just to confirm, if you want to connect it to the internet, there's a switch on the side of the laptop which you have to switch forward. That one there, if you can see it, that one there is the switch. If you press it forward, what will happen is it will give you the network will become available down the bottom. If you click on it, it should. Let's try that again. You'll start searching for networks in range. There we go. The switch wasn't on properly. So it will require a network. Obviously you'd have to put in your key usually. Click on it and put in your wireless key, and it will then say connected. And what you can do then, if you go to Service Box PSA, which is over on the desktop there, I've just clicked on, that will take you onto the global tier, old habit, Jimmy Infotech / Service Box, where you can actually basically, if you pay for access, you can get online. When you do select the pass-through device online, if it gives you any menu options saying about this is not the right version of Java, just press skip. It's running Java 8 version 45. It has programmed successfully with versions up to 2020, and it still does, but it will warn you saying it's the wrong operating system, it's the wrong Java version. Do you wish to press continue? Just press continue, that should be fine. People have fed back to me it's still working, so you know that's fine. Also, when you do select the program interface, select the VCX Nano option. Don't select the MDI. There's a J2534 VCX Nano or VCX Diag pass-through selection. That's for the pass-through programming. Do not select the MDI version because it won't be fully compatible. Okay, that's pretty much it. Thanks a lot for your time. And also, before I finish off, to shut down the laptop, always switch off wireless afterwards. You don't need it on as default. And plus, XP is quite incompatible with a lot of stuff. Like being that it shouldn't really use it online. It's a lot of security problems with XP now. So don't be using it online too much. To shut it down, start, turn off computer, and then select turn off. And that's it.